Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about how this term direct work kind of gets misused and misapplied a lot out there lately. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And I don't want people to think that I'm saying there isn't a benefit to direct work, because there absolutely is. It has its place in training. Now, I don't believe in attempting to isolate a muscle, but hey, I'm the first one to say that a curl done as a compound or even a tricep extension done as a multi-joint exercise can absolutely have their place, right? It's just that attempting to isolate a muscle itself doesn't work. Again, that actually reduces muscle growth, and there's pretty good data on that. So the whole point here is that people use this term direct work, and they're always like, well, if you need to train a muscle directly to make it grow, but then they act like compound movements are not direct work. And, and what's interesting, you go look at guys like, let's say Jeff Cavalier out there. He's got great biceps. Everyone agrees that he's got great biceps, but he also feels that weighted chin-ups are his #1 bicep exercise. Because what people need to understand when we're talking about training a muscle directly, people are saying direct work when what they mean is that you're just trying to reduce growth to other muscles. They don't actually mean that it gives more work to the bicep. And again, if you look at the biomechanics, you look at the data, you look at the EMG studies, everything else, there is literally no type of curl that you can do. I want to state this very clearly. There is no type of curl anywhere in the world that I've ever seen based upon any biomechanics, any EMG data, anything else that can actually work the bicep harder than a weighted chin-up can. Okay, they don't work the muscle any harder. In other words, a chin-up is a direct exercise for the biceps. The biceps are a primary mover that has the potential to move through its full range of motion using the entirety of the muscle. It has the potential to do so. It's not a secondary muscle involved. Whereas in, we might look at a weighted chin-up and see the tricep, it isn't a direct exercise, right? So you take the weighted chin-up, what muscles do we think of that are in there that do get worked? They light up pretty well. They do have part of their function activated, but that's not direct work for them. That would be the long head of the tricep. How about the upper chest? All of that stuff actually does get a training response from chin-ups. So if you were to take a ranked novice and have them do a bunch of chin-ups and get strong at it, and you were to go do an EMG or a biopsy of their triceps or their upper chest, they will absolutely grow from that exercise. They will absolutely see some development from it. But they're not direct work. It's not working them as a primary mover. But I can assure you that exercise is working your biceps, your lats, your rear delts, your middle traps. Those are primary movers in that exercise. They are direct work. It's just not the term that people are trying to use it for. But if we look at it from that perspective, those muscles aren't getting less work than they would on a smaller movement. And that's the take home that people need to remember when we're talking about this. I want to make that very, very clear. There is not one single shred of reasonable evidence that a curl, for example, is capable of working the biceps harder than a weighted chin-up, right? It's not capable of it. So a lot of people would say, well, why would anyone want to do these smaller exercises? It's purely about recovery. And in other words, a novice lifter really is small everywhere. If you're a non-advanced lifter, you are probably trying to gain muscle in multiple places at one time. There's almost nobody out there starting out who's in their first year or two of lifting who anyone looks at their physique and says, that guy would look great. He would be well developed if he just added another 2 inches to his biceps and everything else stayed exactly the same. Does anybody really think that about someone who's been in the gym for 6 months? Or do they say this person probably needs to bring a lot of stuff up? And I'm talking even to you guys who are chasing aesthetics. We're not even getting into performance here in athletes and things, which is again more what I'm interested in. But you guys all know that. You all know that if you're standing there training your biceps, you all know that you need more back. You know that you need more chest. You know that you need more delt. You know that you need more quad. You know that already. So this whole idea that the novice has, or even some intermediates, that, well, they really need to focus on this one body part. No, you need everything growing. And that's what it comes down to with these bigger movements. The novice lifter really doesn't have enough work capacity that recovery is a major issue. They're not strong enough to really beat their recovery up that much. In other words, When we start looking at studies at it, we find that novices don't even benefit from isolation movements. All right, I'm sorry, the studies have looked at this. Novice lifters, you don't benefit from doing arm work. You don't. I'm sorry that it's been looked at, it's been studied. Your arms don't grow any faster if you do curls and tricep extensions if you're already training with sufficient volume on your pressing and lat pull downs and pull ups and all that. This has been looked at in multiple studies at this point. And not one study I'm aware of ever has adding curls increased arm growth in someone in their first year of lifting who's already doing just lat pull downs with enough volume to stimulate a good growth response. And the reason for that is that novices just don't have enough work capacity to destroy their recovery unless they're in the gym a really, really long time. In other words, they can come in and get a solid 1 hour workout in, and if it's a good workout, they're going to stimulate everything, but they're not going to just completely decimate their recovery. They're going to be able to come back in a couple of days and train again. The problem we get into as we get more advanced is a more advanced lifter is capable of moving enough weight on a pull-up or a chin-up to beat their recovery up with multiple sets. Right? We are capable of doing that. So what happens when you're in that situation as you start to get more advanced in these big movements, you generate an enormous amount of tonnage. See, the novice lifter knows they need more back to go with their bicep. They could just do another set of chin-ups, right? They could add more frequency on their chin-ups. They can add more volume on their chin-ups. They can just do more chin-ups. They can do more rows. They can do more bench press. They can do more overhead press. They can do more of this, and if they have any recovery left in the tank, it would be better served just doing the bigger movements so that not just their arms grow, but their shoulders, their chest, their back, everything grows. And if they can recover from all of it, and they usually can, they can stimulate nearly maximum growth just off of all these big movements because their work capacity is not that high. They just need to do more big movements. They need to train harder. Once you get more advanced, you can run into a situation to where you might have a lagging muscle group. Let's say it's your biceps. Let's use biceps as an example. But you are now strong enough that you can exceed your maximum recoverable volume on pull-ups and chin-ups. Your work capacity and strength is high enough that you can really destroy your recovery to the point to where you can't train very frequently if you go all out because you do these big movements, you're moving so much total weight that it's a problem. Yet you still have a lagging bicep. In that case, it does make more sense for the more advanced lifter to say, I can't just add more chin-ups or pull-ups. I'm at the limit of what my recovery can handle, but my biceps are still lagging behind and I need them to get a bit bigger. That's the situation to where this direct work fits in better. It works more because you simply can't add more of the other stuff. There's a recovery threshold on big movements, and smaller movements just don't beat it up as much. But you also need to understand there's a recovery component with connective tissue, tendonitis, everything else from these small movements, because they're oftentimes not natural movements. They do put certain strain on the tendons that can cause inflammation and problems over time. They have their own set of recovery issues, but it's not the whole systematic recovery, right? It's not hitting your whole body and just beating you up the way, you know, a bunch of heavy pull-ups or heavy chin-ups can do. So the issue they run into is that if they need more training volume for that smaller muscle because they can't do any more of the big movements and it's still lagging behind, it makes sense. But someone who isn't very advanced, who doesn't have an enormous work capacity, it really doesn't make sense to throw it in because it's like, well, could you do another set of chin-ups? Could you do another set of pull-ups? Yeah, I could. I could squeeze in one more set per week. So if you're capable of squeezing in one more set per week of that, why would you bother with curls? What do you think you're going to get out of it? It's not going to make your bicep grow any faster than that other set of chin-ups or pull-ups would, but the other one's going to help you more overall. So it really is about time economy and economy of your recovery resources is really what it comes down to with balancing these things out. And people in their first year, sometimes first 2 years of training, it really isn't necessary for them to stimulate maximum growth. They can just train. They can just do their big movements and continue to build a base on them. And if they have something that's lagging, they don't necessarily need to specialize in it. They can just add more volume. In other words, if your shoulders are lagging, do more pressing. You know what I mean by the press, the overhead press. If your biceps are lagging, do more chin-ups and pull-ups, right? It will sort itself for the novice and in some cases the intermediate lifter. It's specialized. They're specializing in a weak point, but it's just adjusting their training volume and their recovery resources around. It's just juggling it around to get more work in where you need more work. But at a certain threshold, as you get more advanced and you still have that muscle that you feel for whatever reason, I don't care whether it's for aesthetics, performance, muscle balance, injury prevention, whatever it happens to be. You have different reasons for wanting to focus on a given muscle. It does make more sense when your recovery can be exceeded by your work capacity. That's where it starts to become a problem, and that's where the more direct work makes sense. But for most of the people out there, it just isn't that big of a deal. And quite frankly, the direct work is a waste of their training economy, a waste of their recovery resources. They could be getting more overall benefit. So that's the way to look at it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.